The applause began before the lie even finished. My older brother, Derek, stood at the head of the long dining table. He held his wine glass high, catching the light from the chandelier. He looked like he owned the world, and in his mind, he was about to. Mom and Dad have decided, Derek announced, his voice booming with false humility. All 8 family rental houses in Florida will go to me. I'll take care of the legacy. He paused, then added with a sharp grin. And the youngest gets nothing. Laughter rippled through the room. Glasses clinked. My mother, Cheryl, had a proud, soft smile on her face. My father, Robert, leaned back in his chair, looking satisfied. He looked like a man who had finally put everything in its right place. I didn't clap. I didn't drink. I sat perfectly still with my hands folded in my lap. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. It was the feeling of holding a grenade with the pin already pulled, while everyone else was busy looking at the fireworks. I waited for the noise to die down. Then I looked straight at my father. I smiled, but it was a small, tight thing. Dad, I said, my voice quiet but cutting through the celebration. Before you all get too comfortable, there's something you don't know. I learned very early that a family is not a circle. It is a solar system. And in our family, my brother Derek was the sun. Everything revolved around him. His gravity pulled us all in. If he was happy, the house was warm. If he was angry, the house was dark. My parents, Robert and Cheryl, were just planets spinning around him, trying to stay in his light. And me? I was just a moon. I was there. I was visible if you looked hard enough, but I had no light of my own. I just reflected whatever was happening to Derek. I remember being 7 years old. It was a Tuesday. I remember the day because Tuesdays were meatloaf days, and I hated meatloaf. We were sitting at the round oak table in the kitchen. The air smelled like onions and ketchup. Derek was 10. He had come home from baseball practice with a torn knee in his jeans. He had slid into second base. He was telling the story loudly, waving his fork in the air. A piece of meat flew off his fork and landed on the clean white tablecloth. My mother didn't scold him. She just laughed. She reached over with a napkin and wiped the spot. You're so aggressive, Derek, she said, her eyes shining. Just like your father used to be. A real go-getter. My father nodded, chewing slowly. You have to be aggressive to win, son. Second place is just the first loser. I sat quietly. I had an art project in my backpack. It was a drawing of a bird I had spent 3 days working on. I had won a gold star for it in class. I wanted to show them. I waited for a pause in the story. I waited for Derek to stop breathing for just 1 second. Dad, I said softly. I got a star today. Derek kept talking. And then the coach said I have a real arm on me. He said I could be pitcher next season. Dad, I said, a little louder. My father turned to me, but his eyes were glazed over. He was looking at me, but he was still listening to Derek. Not now, Evelyn, he said. Your brother is talking. I shrank back in my chair. I felt small. I felt like I had done something wrong just by speaking. I put my fork down. I didn't eat the rest of my dinner. No one noticed. That was the pattern. That was the rule. A year later, the incident with the baseball glove happened. It is burned into my memory like a scar. Derek had a Rawlings glove. It was expensive leather. He had left it at the park because he was busy flirting with a girl near the dugouts. When he went back the next day, it was gone. Stolen. He came home storming. He kicked the front door. He threw his bag on the floor. It's gone, he shouted. My season is over. My mother rushed to him. She rubbed his back. Oh, honey, it's okay. We'll fix it. I need a glove for Saturday, he yelled. My father grabbed his car keys immediately. Get in the car, son. We're going to the sporting goods store. We'll get you the pro model this time. They left in a rush. I was sitting on the living room rug. I was reading a book. My shoes were tight. My toes were curling inside them because I had outgrown them 2 months ago. I had asked my mother for new sneakers 3 times. Each time, she had sighed. She had looked at the checkbook. Money is a little tight right now, Evie, she had said. Just wear thin socks. We'll get you a pair next month. I watched the car pull out of the driveway to buy Derek a second expensive glove. I looked at my feet. My big toe was pressing hard against the canvas of my sneaker. It hurt, but I didn't cry. I just understood. Derek's wants were emergencies. My needs were inconveniences. As we got older, the dynamic didn't change. It just got more expensive. Derek was charming. He was loud. He had a smile that could convince a teacher to change a grade. But he was lazy. He didn't study. He expected. things to come to him. I was different. I was the quiet one. I was the good one. I thought if I was perfect, they would finally see me. I thought if I caused zero problems, they would love me for it. I was wrong. Being low maintenance just made it easier for them to ignore me. I got straight A's. I cleaned my room. I never missed curfew. I helped my mother cook. I helped my father rake the leaves. You're so independent, Evelyn, my mother would say. She said it like a compliment, but it wasn't. It was a dismissal. It meant, thank God I don't have to worry about you because I am too busy worrying about Derek. In high school, Derek totaled his car. He was driving too fast on a wet road. He hit a mailbox and a fence. My parents were terrified. They hugged him. They checked him for scratches. They fought with the insurance company for weeks. They ended up buying him a truck, saying it was safer. 2 months later, I won a state-level scholarship for an essay contest. It was a full ride to a university in Atlanta. It was huge. It meant my parents wouldn't have to pay a dime for my college. I ran into the kitchen with the letter. My hands were shaking.
Mom, Dad.
Look, my mother was on the phone with Derek's mechanic. My father was looking at a bill on the counter. Just a second, Evelyn, my mom said, holding up a finger. I waited. I stood there for 10 minutes. Finally, she hung up. What is it? She asked, looking tired. I handed her the letter. She read it. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's nice, honey. Atlanta? That's far away.
It's a full scholarship, I said.
It covers everything. My father looked up. Well, he said, someone has to leave Florida eventually, I guess. Derek is going to stay here and help with the properties. But you were always the type to wander off. That was it. No cake, no dinner celebration, no toast. I saved them $50,000 in tuition. Derek cost them $5,000 in car repairs. They celebrated that Derek was safe. They barely acknowledged that I was successful. I went to my room and packed the letter away in a drawer. I looked in the mirror. I saw a girl who looked like them, same brown hair, same chin. But I felt like a ghost. Then there was Caleb. Caleb was the youngest. He was 7 years younger than me. By the time he was born, the family dynamic was set in stone. Derek was the star, I was the ghost, and Caleb was just the baby. I tried to protect him. I tried to shield him from the neglect. When Mom forgot to pick him up from soccer because Derek had a crisis, I drove him home. When Dad forgot his birthday because Derek was breaking up with a girlfriend, I baked him a cake. Caleb saw it too. He was quiet like me.
He watched.
One night, when Caleb was 12 and I was visiting from college, we sat on the back porch. The Florida air was thick and humid. The crickets were screaming in the grass. Why does Dad let Derek do whatever he wants?
Caleb asked.
He was holding a soda can, turning it in his hands. I sighed. Because Derek is loud, Cal. And Dad likes loud. It's not fair, Caleb said. I know, I said. But fair isn't a word that lives in this house. I wanted to tell him to fight. I wanted to tell him to scream. But I didn't. I told him what I told myself. Just keep your head down, I said. Do good work. Eventually, they'll respect you for it. I was lying. I didn't know I was lying at the time, but I was. I graduated college. I got a job in Atlanta. I built a life. I became a project manager for a logistics company. I was good at it. I was organized. I was efficient. I was used to cleaning up messes that other people made. Meanwhile, Derek stayed home. He managed the family rental properties. My father had bought 8 small houses in Tampa over 30 years. They were his pride and joy. They were supposed to be the family nest egg. Derek took over the management when he was 25. He has a head for business. My father bragged to his friends. He didn't. Derek had a head for spending money. I would come home for Christmas and see the signs. Derek drove a new car every year. He wore expensive watches. He went on trips to Vegas with his friends. How can he afford that? I asked my mother once, does the rental income pay that much? My mother waved her hand. Oh, Derek is very savvy. He invests. He flips things. He's doing so well. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't want to start a fight. I just wanted to survive the holiday and go back to Atlanta. I became an expert at smiling and nodding. How is work, Evelyn? An aunt would ask. It's good, I would say. And Derek? I hear he's buying a boat. Yes, I would say. That's what I hear. I swallowed the unfairness. I swallowed it until it sat in my stomach like a heavy stone. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I didn't need their approval or their money. I was independent. I was strong. But deep down, the little girl in me was still waiting. I was waiting for my father to look at me with the same pride he looked at Derek. I was waiting for my mother to worry about me the way she worried about Derek. I was waiting for them to say, "We see you, Evelyn. We appreciate you." I waited for 30 years. It never happened. And then Grandma Margaret called, and everything changed. Grandma Margaret was the only person who saw me. She was my father's mother, but she was nothing like him. She was small and sharp. She had eyes that were the color of steel, and she didn't suffer fools. She lived in a small bungalow in St. Petersburg, about 40 minutes away from my parents' big house in Tampa. Her house was my sanctuary. It smelled different there. It smelled like salt water, old books, and peppermint tea. There was no shouting in Grandma's house. There was no Derek sucking all the air out of the room. Grandma observed everything. She sat in her wicker chair on the porch, rocking slowly, watching the world. She saw things my parents refused to see. I was 32 years old when the call came. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was at my desk in Atlanta, looking at a spreadsheet. My phone buzzed. "Grandma?" I answered. I smiled instantly. Just hearing her name made my shoulders drop. "Evelyn," she said. Her voice was thin. She sounded older than she had the last time we spoke. It wasn't a casual hello. It sounded heavy. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Are you sick?" "I'm old, Evelyn. Being old is a sickness that doesn't get better," she said. She paused. "I need you to come down here. Not next month. This weekend." "Okay," I said. I didn't hesitate. "I'll drive down tomorrow morning." "Don't tell your parents," she said. The command was sharp. It cut through the line.
What?
"Why?" "Just don't tell them.
Come straight to my house.
Tell them you're coming for a visit on Sunday if you have to tell them anything. But I need you here Friday." "Grandma, you're scaring me?" "I'm not trying to scare you, child. I'm trying to save you. Just come." The line went dead. I stared at my phone. My heart was hammering. Grandma never played games. If she said come, I went. I left Atlanta at 4 a.m. the next morning. I drove 6 hours south. The highway turned from the red clay of Georgia to the flat, green palms of Florida. When I pulled into her gravel driveway, the sun was high and hot. The air was thick with humidity. Grandma was sitting on the porch. She was wrapped in a shawl even though it was 80 degrees. That scared me more than her voice had. She looked frail.
Her skin was like paper.
But her eyes were clear. I walked up the steps and hugged her. She felt like a bird, all light bones. "You made good time," she said. "You told me to hurry. Come inside." I made iced tea. We went into the kitchen. The ceiling fan was whirring above us. Click whir, click whir. It was the heartbeat of the house. On her small wooden kitchen table, there were 2 thick folders. They were red. She poured me a glass of tea. She sat down opposite me.
She didn't ask about my job.
She didn't ask about my love life. She pointed a crooked finger at the first folder.
"Open it," she said.
I opened the folder. It was a mess of bank statements, photocopied checks, and invoices from a contractor. "What is this?" I asked. "Look at the checks," she said. I looked closer. They were checks from the family business account, the account that held the rent money from the 8 houses. They were signed by Derek. Payment to DH Consulting. Amount $4,500. Payment to Sunshine Reno. Amount $6,200. I flipped through them. There were dozens. "Who is DH Consulting?" I asked.
"Derek Hartman," she said.
"He set up a shell company. He bills the family account for consulting fees every month." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "And Sunshine Reno?"
"Fake," she said.
"I drove past the rental on 4th Street last week. The invoice says he paid $6,000 for a new roof. Evelyn, that roof hasn't been touched in 10 years. It's got moss growing on it." I looked at the total at the bottom of the spreadsheet she had made. The number was staggering. Over 5 years, Derek had siphoned nearly $200,000 out of the family accounts. "Does Dad know?" I whispered. Grandma laughed. It was a dry, bitter sound. "Your father sees what he wants to see. He sees a son who is a businessman. If I showed him this, he would say it's a mistake. He would say Derek is just reimbursing himself for expenses. He would find a way to excuse it." I put the paper down. My hands were shaking. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because the houses are in my name," she said. I froze. "What?" "Your father thinks they are his. But your grandfather and I bought those lots 40 years ago. We put them in a trust, but the deed remained with me until I die. Your father has power of attorney to manage them, which he gave to Derek. But the ownership? That's still mine. She pushed the second folder toward me. Open that one.
I
Open the second folder. It was a legal document, a living trust. I went to a lawyer 3 months ago, she said. I revoked your father's power of attorney effective upon my death, and I created a new trust. I read the words on the page. Trustee, Margaret Hartman. Successor trustee, Evelyn Hartman. I looked up at her. My mouth was open. You're leaving them to me? I'm leaving the responsibility to you, she corrected. And the ownership. If I leave them to your father, he will give them to Derek. And Derek will sell them or gamble them away within 5 years. There will be nothing left. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Evelyn, I have watched you for 30 years. I watched them ignore you. I watched them take your kindness and use it like a rug to wipe their feet on. You are the only one with a brain in your head and a backbone in your body. Tears pricked my eyes. Grandma, I don't know if I can do this. Dad will be furious. Derek will go crazy. Let them, she said fiercely. Let them go crazy. It's time you stopped being the quiet one in the corner. It's time you took your place at the head of the table. She pulled a pen out of her pocket. She set it on the document. This creates the trust. It transfers all 8 deeds into it. Once we sign this, and once I die, you own everything. You control everything. Derek can't touch a penny unless you say so. I looked at the pen. It was a simple blue ballpoint, but it looked like a weapon. If I signed this, I was declaring war on my family. I was breaking the pattern. I was stepping out of the shadows and standing directly in the sun. I thought about the baseball glove. I thought about the scholarship. I thought about Caleb sitting on the porch, asking why it wasn't fair. I thought about Derek laughing while he wrote fake checks to himself, stealing our inheritance while my parents applauded him. I picked up the pen. I'll do it, I said. Good girl, Grandma whispered. We signed the papers right there on the kitchen table. The only sound was the scratching of the pen and the whir of the fan. When we were done, she closed the folder. Now, she said, this is the hard part. You cannot say a word. To anyone? To no one. Not your father. Not your mother. Certainly not Derek. They need to believe that nothing has changed. If they find out before I die, they will come here. They will harass me. They will try to force me to change it back. I am too old for that fight, Evelyn. I need peace to die. I promise, I said. I won't say a word. Paper outlives promises, she said, quoting her favorite saying. But silence is how you win wars. She looked at me, her eyes softening. This is my gift to you, Evelyn. Not the houses, the power to say no, the power to stop them. I stayed with her for the weekend. We didn't talk about the papers again. We drank tea. We watched game shows. I cooked for her. When I left on Sunday, I hugged her tight. I think I knew it was the last time I would see her. Be strong, she whispered in my ear. And when the time comes, don't blink. I won't, I said. I drove away with the knowledge burning in my chest. I had a secret. For the first time in my life, I held the cards. Derek was the sun. My parents were the planets. But I was the gravity. And they had no idea that the orbit had already shifted. Grandma Margaret died in her sleep 3 months later. The funeral was a blur of black dresses, humid Florida air, and casseroles. People came from all over St. Petersburg to pay their respects. They talked about her sharp wit and her kindness. I didn't cry at the service. I felt a strange sense of peace. I knew she was tired. I knew she was ready. And I knew she had left me with a job to do. My family, however, performed their grief loudly. My mother sobbed into a handkerchief in the front pew. My father looked solemn and shook hands with everyone, accepting condolences like he was accepting an award. And Derek? Derek played the grieving grandson perfectly. He stood by the casket. He told stories about how much she meant to him. She was the matriarch, he told a neighbor. I only hope I can honor her legacy. I stood in the back, watching them. I felt like a spy. I knew something they didn't know. I knew that legacy wasn't what Derek thought it was. After the funeral, the house grew quiet. The guests left. The casseroles were put in the fridge. I packed my bag. I had a flight back to Atlanta the next morning. I wanted to get out of there. The air in my parents' house felt heavy. It felt like a trap waiting to spring. I was zipping up my suitcase when my mother knocked on my door. Evelyn. Yes, Mom? She opened the door. She looked tired, but her eyes were alert. She had that specific look she got when she wanted something, a mix of sweetness and anxiety. "Sweetheart, can you stay one more day?" "Just until tomorrow evening." "I have work, Mom. I need to get back." "No, I know. But your father and we just need to have a quick family meeting. Now that Grandma is gone, there are some administrative things to settle. It won't take long. Please? For me." I looked at her. I knew exactly what this was. Grandma had warned me. "They will try to force you," she had said. "Okay," I said. "One more day." The next morning, the dining room table was set, but not for breakfast. It looked like a boardroom. The placemats were gone. In the center of the table, there was a pot of coffee for mugs and a stack of papers. My father sat at the head of the table. Derek sat to his right. My mother sat to his left. There was one empty chair at the end, opposite my father. It was the furthest seat from power. It was the seat for the listener, not the speaker. "Sit down, Evelyn," my father said. He didn't look up from his papers. I sat. The wood of the chair felt hard against my back. "Coffee?" Derek asked. He poured himself a cup. He looked relaxed. He was wearing a polo shirt and expensive loafers. He looked like a man who had already won the lottery and was just waiting to cash the ticket. "No thanks," I said. My father cleared his throat. He clasped his hands on the table. "We need to talk about the properties," he began. "Grandma's rentals." "Okay," I said. I kept my face blank. "As you know," he continued, "Mom and I have been managing them for years. Derek has been doing the legwork. He knows the tenants. He knows the maintenance schedules." He paused. This was the part where I was supposed to nod and agree. I didn't nod. I just stared at him. He shifted in his seat. "Now that Grandma has passed, the ownership is in transition. Technically, without a clear will, things can get messy. Probate court takes months. Lawyers cost money." He pushed a single sheet of paper across the long wooden table toward me. It slid across the polished surface and stopped right in front of me. "We want to keep this simple," my mother added softly. "We want to keep it in the family." I looked down at the paper. It was a document titled Waiver of Interest and Quitclaim Deed. I read the text. It was simple legal language. It stated that I, Evelyn Hartman, voluntarily waived any right, title, or interest in the 8 properties listed below. It stated that I agreed to transfer any potential claim to Derek Hartman. There was a blank line for my signature, and a blank line for a notary. "What is this?" I asked. "It's a waiver," my father said. "It simplifies the estate. Since Derek is the one here in Florida, and since he's the one managing the business, it makes sense for the titles to go directly to him." My mother leaned forward. "You're building such a great life in Atlanta, Evelyn. You're so busy. You don't want the headache of being a landlord. Leaky faucets, late rent, it's a lot of work." "So Derek gets all 8 houses?" I asked. "He gets the responsibility," Derek corrected quickly. He leaned back, tapping his pen on the table. Tap, tap, tap. "I'm taking the burden off you, Ev. You should be thanking me." I looked at the list of addresses on the paper. I knew these houses. I knew their value. Even in a bad market, this portfolio was worth over $3 million. They were asking me to sign away my share of $3 million. Just like that. "And Caleb?" I asked. "Is Caleb signing one of these too?" Caleb wasn't in the room. He was 19, living in a dorm at college 2 hours away. "Caleb is young," my father said dismissively. "We'll handle Caleb. He needs cash for school, not real estate. Derek will take care of him." "Take care of him how?" I asked. "Like he takes care of the maintenance fund?" The room went deadly silent. Derek stopped tapping his pen. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said. I looked back at the paper. I saw something near the bottom of the page. A smudge. A faint gray line where toner had not stuck to the paper. It looked like someone had used whiteout on the original document before making this photocopy. I looked closer. Under the bold line for the signature, there was a tiny, almost invisible date. It was dated 3 days before Grandma died. They had drawn this up while she was still breathing. I felt a wave of nausea. Then it turned into cold, hard anger. "I'm not signing this," I said. My voice was quiet. It didn't shake. My father blinked. He looked like he hadn't heard me correctly. "Excuse me?" I said. "I'm not signing it." Derek laughed. It was a scoffing sound, sharp and ugly. "Come on, Ev. Don't make this complicated. It's a standard form." "It's not standard," I said. "You're asking me to give you my inheritance. For nothing. For peace," my mother cried out. She looked distressed. Evelyn, why do you have to be so difficult? We're just trying to do what's best for the family. Best for the family? I looked at her. Or best for Derek? It's the same thing, she said. That sentence hung in the air. It's the same thing. In her mind, it was true. Derek was the family. The rest of us were just accessories. My father's face turned red. He slammed his hand on the table. The coffee cups rattled. Now you listen to me, he growled. I have worked my whole life to build this. I decide where it goes. You have a job. You have money. Your brother needs this foundation to build his future. Don't be greedy. Greedy? I repeated. I almost laughed. I thought about my shoes with the holes in them when I was 8. I thought about my scholarship. I thought about the car I bought with my own money. I'm not being greedy, Dad. I'm being careful. Careful of what? Derek snapped. You think I can't handle it? I looked him right in the eye. I think you handle money very creatively, Derek. He narrowed his eyes. You don't know anything about this business. You sit in an office in Atlanta pushing papers. I'm out here in the real world. Just sign the paper, Evelyn. My father commanded. It wasn't a request anymore. It was an order. Sign it, and we can all have a nice lunch. I looked at the pen sitting next to the paper. It was a cheap black stick pen. I remembered the heavy metal pen I had used at Grandma's kitchen table. I remembered the sound of her ceiling fan. Click whir. I remembered her voice. Silence is how you win wars. If I told them now, if I screamed, I already own it. They would explode. They would fight. They would drag me to court. They would try to manipulate Caleb. I wasn't ready yet. I needed to go back to Atlanta. I needed to get the documents from my safe. I needed to talk to the lawyer Grandma had used. I needed to be precise. So I stood up. Where are you going? My mother asked. I'm leaving, I said. Sit down, my father shouted. No, I pushed the chair in. I didn't look at the paper. I didn't look at Derek. I'm going back to Atlanta. I need time to think. There is no time to think, Derek said, standing up too. He was tall, looming over the table. We need to file this next week. Then you'll have to wait, I said. I turned my back on them. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every instinct in my body told me to turn around, apologize, sign the paper, and be the good girl one last time. But I kept walking. I walked out of the dining room. I walked through the living room where the ghost of Christmas pasts lingered. I walked out the front door into the blinding Florida sun. Behind me, I heard Derek's voice. He wasn't shouting anymore. He was muttering to our parents. Let her go. She's just being dramatic. She'll come around. She always does. I got into my car. I locked the doors. I didn't cry. I smiled. She'll come around. They were so sure of me. They were so sure I was weak. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. I didn't stop until I hit the Georgia state line. The drive north on I-75 is long and boring. It's just miles of flat highway, pine trees, and billboards for accident lawyers and pecans. Usually I hate this drive, but that day it felt like freedom. For the first hour, my phone blew up. Call from Mom. Call from Dad. Text from Derek. Stop acting like a child. Turn around and sign the papers. Text from Mom. You're upsetting your father. Please, Evelyn. I didn't answer. After the 5th call, I turned my phone off and threw it onto the passenger seat. Silence filled the car. I started to think. My mind was racing, replaying the scene in the dining room. They hadn't asked me. They had told me. They had presented the waiver as a done deal. They hadn't even considered that I might want a share of the inheritance. It wasn't just about the money. It was the erasure. To them, I didn't exist as a person with rights. I only existed as a person who could serve Derek's needs. It keeps things peaceful, my mother had said. That was the phrase that stuck in my head. Peace. For my family, peace meant Derek gets what he wants. If Derek was happy, there was peace. If Derek was challenged, there was war. For 30 years, I had been the peacekeeper. I had surrendered every battle before it even started just to keep the house quiet. I had given up my toys, my time, my pride. But Grandma Margaret had taught me a new definition of peace. Peace isn't silence. Peace is justice. Grandma didn't give me the houses just because she loved me. She gave them to me because she knew I was the only one who would stop the bleeding. She knew Derek would sell the properties one by one to pay for his lifestyle. She knew that in 10 years, there would be nothing left for Caleb, nothing left of her hard work. She used me as a shield, and now I had to be a sword. I drove through Tifton, Georgia. The sun was setting. The sky was a bruised purple color. I realized something important during that drive. My family relied on my voice being weak. They relied on me explaining myself. They relied on me arguing because if I argued, they could argue back. They could wear
me down.
They could guilt trip me. Don't be greedy. Don't be difficult. Don't be selfish. Those were their weapons. But you can't argue with silence. If I didn't talk to them, they couldn't manipulate me. If I didn't explain my plan, they couldn't sabotage it. I decided then and there that I wouldn't tell them about the trust until the absolute last moment. I wouldn't send an email. I wouldn't call. I would show up. I would let them plan their victory party. I would let Derek believe he had won. I would let them invite the lawyers and the friends. I would let them build the stage. And then I would walk onto it and tear it down. It felt cruel. A part of me, the part that still wanted my mother to hug me, felt sick. Was I being vindictive? Was I being just as bad as them? Then I remembered the checkbook. The fake invoices. DH Consulting. Derek was stealing. He was a criminal. If I let him take the properties, I was an accomplice to his theft. This wasn't revenge. It was a rescue mission. I reached Atlanta around midnight. The city lights were glowing orange against the dark. I pulled into the parking garage of my apartment building. I was exhausted. My eyes burned. My back ached from the tension. But when I walked into my quiet, empty apartment, I felt powerful. I didn't turn the lights on. I walked straight to my closet. On the top shelf, behind a stack of sweaters, was a fireproof lockbox. I pulled it down. I sat on the floor and opened it. Inside was the red folder Grandma had given me. I opened it. The smell of peppermint and old paper drifted out. There it was, the Hartman Family Living Trust. Settler, Margaret Hartman. Trustee, Margaret Hartman. Successor trustee, Evelyn Hartman. It was signed. It was notarized. It was recorded with a county clerk. I ran my fingers over the signature. Grandma's handwriting was shaky, but the ink was solid. Paper outlives promises. I looked at the date. It was 2 years old. For 2 years, Derek had been acting like the king, unaware that the kingdom had already been signed away. I closed the folder.
I turned my phone back on.
There were 12 missed calls and 4 voicemails. I listened to the last one. It was from Derek.
Ev, look.
I'm sorry, I snapped. Just come back and sign the thing. We can work something out. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I can give you a little cash for your trouble. 5 grand? Just to be nice. Call me. 5 grand. He was offering me $5,000 for a $3 million portfolio. And he acted like he was doing me a favor. I didn't delete the voicemail. I saved it. I opened my laptop. I created a new folder on my desktop. I named it Evidence. I was done being the victim. I slept that night with the lockbox on my nightstand. The next morning, I called my boss. I need a week off, I said. Everything okay, Evelyn? Yes, I said. I just have some family business to finish. Okay.
Take the time.
I hung up. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I was going to war, but I wasn't bringing guns. I was bringing paperwork. I went to the print shop. I made high-quality copies of the trust. I made copies of the deeds. I made copies of the fake checks Grandma had shown me. I had taken photos of them that day in her kitchen. I organized everything into binders. 1 for the lawyer, 1 for my parents, 1 for Derek. I was methodical. I was precise. I was the quiet, competent daughter they had trained me to be. They had taught me to be invisible. They had taught me to work in the shadows while Derek shined in the light. They didn't realize that the shadows are where you can see everything clearly. On the 4th day, I got a text from my younger brother, Caleb. Hey, Ev. Mom is freaking out. They are having a big dinner on Sunday. They invited the family lawyer. They say you're coming to sign. Are you? I stared at the screen. They were so arrogant. They assumed my silence meant I had given up. They assumed I was just licking my wounds and would come back to obey them. They had gone ahead and scheduled the signing party without even confirming with me. I typed back, I'll be there. I didn't say I would sign. I just said I would be there. I packed my suitcase. I put the binders in. I put the original trust document in a waterproof sleeve. I looked in the mirror. I wore a black blazer and tailored pants. I didn't look like the little girl in the sneakers anymore. I looked like a CEO. I walked out the door. The drive south felt different this time. The road wasn't an escape route anymore. It was a runway. Back in my apartment in Atlanta, I turned my living room into a war room. I didn't have weapons. I didn't have an army. But I had something better. I had documentation. My family operated on feelings. They operated on stories. Derek was the hero because my father felt he was the hero. I was the sidekick because my mother felt I was the sidekick. They rewrote history every day to fit the narrative they wanted. But you cannot rewrite a notarized deed. I sat on my beige carpet. The contents of the fireproof box were spread out around me in a semicircle. I picked up the first document. It was the deed for the house on 4th Street.
It was a simple piece of paper.
It had a gold seal in the corner. At the top, in bold letters, it said, "Quitclaim deed." I read the text for the 100th time. Grantor, Margaret Hartman. Grantee, the Margaret Hartman Living Trust. Date, May 12, 2023. I picked up the next one. The rental on Palm Avenue. Same date, same seal. I went through all 8 of them. Every single property my father thought he owned, every single house Derek thought he was inheriting, had been legally transferred 2 years ago. My father had been managing houses he didn't own. He had been collecting rent on properties that technically belonged to a trust. And who controlled the trust? I picked up the thickest document, the trust agreement. I turned to page 12. Upon the death of the grantor, the position of successor trustee shall be filled by Evelyn Hartman. It was ironclad. I didn't just rely on the paper, though. I knew my family. I knew what they would do. Derek would scream that it was a forgery. My father would claim Grandma was senile when she signed it. My mother would cry and say I tricked her. So I needed more proof. I opened my laptop. I bought a high-speed scanner years ago for work, and I pulled it out of the closet now. I scanned every single page. Work click. I created a digital folder. I named it The Truth. Then I went deeper. I logged into the public records website for Pinellas County. I searched for the properties. There they were. The county records were digital and public. Anyone could see them if they looked. But my father never looked. He was too arrogant. He assumed that because he had the keys, he had the power. I took screenshots of the county records. Owner of record, Margaret Hartman Living Trust. I printed the screenshots. Then, I organized the evidence of Derek's theft. I took the photos I had snapped in Grandma's kitchen, the photos of the fake checks, DH Consulting, Sunshine Reno. I made a spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, check number. Column C, amount. Column D, Derek's excuse. I added it up. The total was exactly $184,500 over 5 years. That was nearly $200,000 he had stolen from Grandma, from the family. I printed 3 copies of everything. I bought 3 heavy, black binders from the office supply store down the street. I punched holes in the pages. Snap, snap, snap. I created tabs. Tab 1, the trust. Tab 2, the deeds. Tab 3, the theft. I labeled the binders. Binder 1 was for the family attorney. Binder 2 was for my father. Binder 3 was for Derek. I didn't make one for my mother. She would read whatever my father told her to read. It took me 2 days to finish. I didn't sleep much. I drank coffee and ate toast over the sink. I felt a strange energy buzzing in my veins. It was the energy of finally standing up. For 30 years, I had been the understanding one. Be understanding, Evelyn. Derek needs the new car more than you need braces. Be understanding, Evelyn. Derek needs our help. I was done understanding. I was ready to be understood. I looked at the binders lined up on my coffee table. They looked boring. They were just black plastic and white paper. But they were heavy. They held the weight of the truth. My phone rang again. It was Caleb. Hey, Ev. Just checking. You coming? I texted back. Yes. I'll be there around 2 p.m. on Sunday. Okay. Good luck. Dad is in a mood. He says if you don't sign, he's cutting you off. I stared at the text. Cutting me off? Cutting me off from what? I paid my own rent. I paid my own car note. I paid for my own groceries. They didn't give me money. They rarely gave me love. The only thing they could cut me off from was the drama. And frankly, that sounded like a vacation. I put the binders in my tote bag. I packed my suitcase. I walked around my apartment one last time. It was quiet. It was mine. I had paid for every stick of furniture in it. I looked at a photo on my mantle. It was a picture of me and Grandma Margaret on her porch. We were drinking iced tea. She was laughing. I touched the glass. Okay, Grandma, I whispered. Let's go finish this. I turned off the lights. I locked the door. I went down to my car, threw the bag in the trunk, and started the engine. I wasn't driving home to visit. I was driving home to testify. The drive south was usually a time for me to get anxious. Usually, as I crossed the Florida state line, my stomach would start to hurt. I would start rehearsing conversations in my head. I would practice smiling. I would practice saying, "That's great, Derek," in a convincing voice. But this time, I felt nothing. The road was just a road. The trees were just trees. I listened to a podcast. I drank a vanilla latte. I felt strangely light. It was the lightness of having nothing to lose. When you are trying to win love, you are heavy with fear. You are afraid of saying the wrong thing. You are afraid of being rejected. But I realized I had already been rejected. They had rejected me when they handed me that waiver. They had rejected me when they decided my future didn't matter. So I wasn't afraid anymore. You can't fall off the floor. I reached Tampa around 1:30 p.m. The heat was oppressive. The sky was a bright, blinding blue. I drove through the familiar streets of my childhood neighborhood. The lawns were perfectly manicured. The palm trees were trimmed. It was a neighborhood where people cared very much about how things looked on the outside. I turned onto my parents' street. I slowed down. There were cars everywhere. The driveway was full. Derek's massive black truck was parked right in the center, blocking the garage, like a king on a throne. My parents' Lexus was squeezed to the side. But there were other cars, a silver Mercedes, a red convertible, a few sedans I didn't recognize. They had turned this into an event. I parked my car on the street, 3 houses down. It was the closest spot I could find. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment. I watched the house. The front door was open. I could see movement inside. I could hear the low hum of voices and laughter. I saw my father walk past the front window. He was wearing his best suit, the navy blue one he wore to weddings and important business deals. He was holding a glass of scotch. He looked triumphant. Then I saw Derek. He came out onto the front porch. He was laughing at something someone said. He was wearing a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking casual and rich. He slapped a man on the back. The man was Mr. Henderson, the family attorney. My stomach tightened. They had brought the lawyer. They really intended to make this official today. I took a deep breath. Paper outlives promises. I opened my car door. The heat hit me instantly. I walked to the trunk. I took out my suitcase. I didn't need the clothes, but I needed the prop. The suitcase signaled that I was just arriving, that I was staying, that I was the daughter coming home. Then I took out the heavy tote bag with the binders. I slung it over my shoulder. I walked up the driveway. The wheels of my suitcase clicked on the pavement.
Click, click, click. No one noticed me at first.
They were too busy celebrating. I walked up the front steps. I stood in the doorway. The living room was full. There were maybe 15 people. My parents, Derek, Caleb, Mr. Henderson, and a few of my parents' friends, the kind of friends who loved gossip and free wine. There was a banner hanging over the fireplace. It said, "Congratulations, Derek." I almost laughed. They had made a banner. They were congratulating him on inheriting money he didn't earn from a woman he stole from. My mother was the first to see me. She was holding a tray of deviled eggs. She froze. "Evelyn," she cried out. Her voice was too high, too bright. "You made it." The room went quiet. The laughter died down. Everyone turned to look at the door. Derek turned around. He grinned. It was a shark's grin. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," he said. He spread his arms wide. "The prodigal sister returns." My father stepped forward. He looked relieved. He thought my presence meant submission. "Good, good," my father said. "You're late, but you're here. Put your bag away." We were just about to make a toast. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I stood in the doorway with my suitcase handle in one hand and the heavy bag on my shoulder.
"Hello, Dad."
"Hello, Mom," I said. My voice was calm. It carried across the room. Come in," my mother said, rushing over to me. She tried to hug me, but I stayed stiff. "You look tired, honey. Let me get you a drink." "I don't want a drink," I said. "Don't be like that," Derek called out. "It's a celebration. We're keeping the legacy alive." He raised his glass. "To the Hartman properties." A few people murmured, "Here, here." I watched them. It was like watching a play where the actors didn't know the set was on fire. "We have the papers ready on the dining table," Mr. Henderson said. He stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. He was a small man who always smelled like peppermint and expensive cologne. "Just a quick signature, Evelyn, and then you can join the party." I looked at Mr. Henderson. I had known him since I was 10.
He was supposed to be a smart man.
"Mr. Henderson," I said. Did you check the title search before you drafted those papers? He blinked. Excuse me? The waiver, I said. The quitclaim deed you want me to sign. Did you run a title search on the properties this week? He chuckled nervously. Evelyn, there's no need for that. Your father has the deeds in his safe. We know who owns them. Do you? I asked. The silence in the room changed. It wasn't an awkward silence anymore. It was a confused silence. My father frowned. Evelyn, what are you doing? Don't start this nonsense again. I'm not starting anything, I said. I'm finishing it. I let go of my suitcase. It stood upright on the floor. I walked past my mother. I walked past the tray of deviled eggs. I walked straight to the dining room table where the stack of papers was waiting for me. I dropped my tote bag onto the table. It made a heavy thud. The sound echoed in the room. Derek followed me. What is that? Did you bring your work? Jesus, Evelyn, can you not take a break for one day? I reached into the bag. I pulled out the 3 black binders. I stacked them up. I looked at Derek. I looked at my father. I didn't bring my work, I said. I brought yours. My father's face darkened. I told you, Evelyn. If you're here to cause trouble, you can leave. We need that signature. You're not getting a signature, I said. Then get out. Derek snapped. We don't need you here bringing everyone down. Actually, I said, opening the first binder. You do need me. Because if I leave, I'm taking the houses with me. What are you talking about? My mother whispered. I opened the binder to the first page. The plastic cover crinkled. I pointed to the document. This is the Hartman Family Living Trust, I said clearly. I looked at the attorney. Mr. Henderson, you notarized Grandma's will 10 years ago. But did you know she came to see a different lawyer 2 years ago? Mr. Henderson's face went pale. No, he said. She did, I said. She created a trust, and she moved all 8 properties into it. I flipped the page. And this, I said, pointing to the next paragraph, is the section on trustees. I looked at Derek. Read it, I said. Derek stared at the page. He didn't want to read it. He looked like he wanted to burn it. Read it, I repeated. My voice wasn't loud, but it was hard as stone. Derek looked down. His eyes scanned the paper. Successor trustee, he mumbled. Louder, I said. He looked up at me. His face was red, blotchy with anger and sudden fear. Successor trustee, Evelyn Hartman, he spat out. My father dropped his glass. It hit the hardwood floor and shattered. Scotch and glass splattered everywhere. But no one moved to clean it up. The celebration was over. The reckoning had begun. The sound of the glass breaking was the only sound in the room for 10 seconds. The smell of scotch soaked into the expensive rug. My father stared at the shattered pieces near his feet. Then he looked at me. His face wasn't angry anymore. It was pale. It was the face of a man who had just realized he was standing on a trapdoor. What did you say? He whispered. I said I am the trustee. I repeated. I own the legal title to all 8 properties. I have for 2 years. That's a lie, Derek shouted. His voice cracked. He sounded like a child who had been caught stealing candy. Grandma wouldn't do that. She loved me. She told me I was the future. She loved you, Derek, I said calmly. But she didn't trust you. I opened the second binder. Tab 2, the deeds. I took out the first deed. I held it up so everyone could see the stamp from the county clerk. This is the deed for the house on 4th Street. It was transferred to the trust on May 12, 2023. I took out the next one. The house on Palm Avenue. Transferred May 12, 2023. I laid them out on the dining table, one by one. It was like laying down a royal flush in poker. Slap, slap, slap. The table was covered in proof. Mr. Henderson, the attorney, stepped forward. His hands were shaking slightly. He picked up one of the deeds. He adjusted his glasses. He looked at the seal. He looked at the signature. He looked at my father. Bob, the attorney said softly, these are real. They are recorded documents. They can't be, my mother cried out. She grabbed Derek's arm. Mr. Henderson, fix this. She was confused. She was old. Evelyn must have tricked her. I looked at my mother. That hurt. Even with the proof right in front of her, her first instinct was that I was the villain and Derek was the victim. I didn't trick her, Mom, I said. I saved her. Saved her from what? Derek sneered. From making me rich? From you stealing every dime she had, I said. I opened the third binder. Tab 3, the theft. The room went cold. What are you talking about? My father demanded. Derek has been managing the maintenance fund for 5 years, I said. He sends you invoices for repairs, right? Yes, my father said. He handles the contractors. There are no contractors, I said. I pulled out the spreadsheet. I pulled out the photos of the checks. Who is DH Consulting, Derek? I asked. Derek's face went white. He stopped breathing. And who is Sunshine Reno? I asked. I turned to the guests, the neighbors and friends who were watching this with their mouths open. Derek set up fake companies. I explained to the room. He billed my grandmother for roof repairs that never happened. He billed her for painting that was never done. He wrote checks from the family account to himself. I pointed to the total at the bottom of the page. Total misappropriated funds, $184,500. He didn't just want the inheritance, I said, looking my father in the eye. He's been eating it alive for years. Grandma knew. She saw the checks. That's why she called me. My father looked at the spreadsheet. He looked at the checks. He recognized his own mother's signature on the checks, and he saw Derek's endorsement on the back. He looked at Derek. Is this true? My father asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Derek tried to laugh. It was a horrible, wet sound. Dad, come on. It's accounting. It's complicated. I was paying myself for my time. I was managing the assets. Evelyn is twisting everything. The roof on 4th Street, my father said. You charged $6,000 for it last year. I remember. You said it was leaking. It was, Derek said. I drove by there last week. I interjected. It's the same old roof, Derek. There are moss patches on the shingles. My father stared at his son. For the first time in 30 years, the blinders fell off. He didn't see the golden boy. He saw the liar. You stole from your grandmother, my father said. I was entitled to it. Derek screamed. The scream shocked everyone. The mask fell off completely. Derek's face twisted into something ugly and red. I did the work. Derek yelled. I stayed here. I listened to her boring stories. I drove her to the doctors. I deserve that money. And he pointed a shaking finger at me. She left. She went to Atlanta to be a big shot. Why should she get anything? Because she didn't steal, a voice said from the hallway. We all turned. It was Caleb, my younger brother. He was standing in the archway between the living room and the dining room. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He looked young, but he was standing tall. Caleb, my mother said. Caleb walked into the room. He came and stood next to me. I knew, Caleb said. You knew what? My father asked. I knew about the trust, Caleb said. I drove Grandma to the notary 2 years ago. Derek was in Vegas. Mom and Dad were on a cruise. Grandma called me. She said she needed to make sure things were safe. He looked at Derek with pure disgust. She told me to wait outside, Caleb said. She said, Caleb, your brother is a hole in the pocket of this family. If I give him the money, he will lose it. Evelyn is the only one who can sew it shut. My mother covered her mouth with her hand. A sob escaped her throat. She told me to keep it a secret, Caleb said. She said Evelyn would reveal it when the time was right. He looked at me and smiled. A small, brave smile. I guess the time is right. The energy in the room shifted instantly. Before Caleb spoke, it was just my word against Derek's. But Caleb was the baby. Caleb was the neutral party. If Caleb knew, it was real. Derek realized he was alone. He looked at the guests. They were looking at their shoes. They were looking at the door. They wanted to leave. I think we should go, Mrs. Gable, the neighbor, whispered to her husband. Yes, he said. The guests started to shuffle out. They muttered awkward goodbyes. No one touched the deviled eggs. No one looked at the banner that said, Congratulations, Derek. Within 2 minutes, the house was empty except for the 5 of us and the lawyer. My father sat down in one of the dining chairs. He looked old. He looked like all the air had been let out of him. Bob, Mr. Henderson said gently, I need to review these documents, but if they are recorded, they are binding. The properties belong to the trust. Evelyn is the owner. No. Derek slammed his fist on the table. I'm not letting her take this. I have rights. I have squatters' rights. I've been managing them. You have no rights, Derek, I said. I stepped closer to him. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. He wasn't a monster. He was just a pathetic, greedy man. Here is what is going to happen, I said. I spoke clearly, like I was giving a presentation at work. Mr. Henderson is going to verify the trust. Once he does, I am taking full control of the bank accounts tomorrow morning. I am changing the locks on the office. I am notifying the tenants to send rent checks to a new address. Derek's eyes bulged. You can't do that. That's my income. Not anymore, I said. You have a choice, Derek. I can report the stolen $184,000 to the police. I have the evidence. That's grand theft. That's prison time. Derek flinched. He looked at Mom.
Mom.
Don't let her put me in jail. My mother was crying silently. She looked broken. The picture of her perfect family had been slashed down the middle. Or, I continued, you can walk away. You can sign a document admitting that you have no claim to the properties. You can agree to pay back the money over time, or we can deduct it from any future inheritance Mom and Dad might leave you. But you are out of the business.
Today.
Right now. I looked at him. Prison or goodbye. Choose. Derek looked at our father. Dad, are you going to let her do this to me? I'm your son. My father looked up. His eyes were wet. He looked at the broken glass on the floor. He looked at the binder labeled the theft. You stole from my mother, my father said. His voice was shaking. She scrimped and saved her whole life. And you treated her like a bank account. Dad, Shut up, my father said. It was the first time I had ever heard him speak to Derek that way. Just shut up. He turned to me. He looked at me with something I had never seen before. It wasn't love, exactly. It was fear and respect. Do what you have to do, Evelyn, he said. Derek made a sound like a wounded animal. He kicked the chair. Fine, he screamed. Keep the damn houses. They're dumpy anyway. I don't need you. I don't need any of you. He turned and stormed out of the house. We heard the front door slam. A moment later, we heard the roar of his truck engine, tires screeching as he peeled out of the driveway. Silence returned to the room. My mother sat down next to my father. She took his hand. They looked like two people sitting in the wreckage of a house after a tornado. I looked at Caleb.
He nodded at me.
I looked at the lawyer. Mr. Henderson, I said, please draw up the settlement agreement for Derek to sign. And please give my father the official notice of the trust.
I will, he said.
He looked at me with new appreciation. You're very prepared, Evelyn. I had to be, I said. I began to pack up my binders. I put the deeds back. I put the evidence back. My mother looked up at me. Her makeup was running. Evelyn, she said, why didn't you tell us earlier? Why did you let us plan the party? I zipped in my bag. Because you wouldn't have listened, Mom, I said. If I had told you over the phone, you would have talked me out of it. You would have said I was jealous. You would have said I was making trouble. I picked up my bag. I had to show you. You needed to see who Derek really is. And you needed to see who I really am. I looked at the two of them. I'm not the invisible daughter anymore. I'm the one holding the keys. I didn't stay for dinner. There was no dinner to be had. I left about 20 minutes later. Caleb walked me to my car. The sun was starting to go down. The sky was turning a soft pink. The air was cooler now. You were amazing in there, Caleb said. He leaned against my car door. I was terrified, I admitted. My hands were shaking a little now that the adrenaline was fading. You didn't look it, he said. You looked like Grandma. I smiled. That was the best compliment he could have given me. What about you? I asked. Are you going to be okay here? With them. Caleb shrugged. It's going to be weird for a while. I think Dad is broken. He built his whole identity on Derek being the successor. Now he has to face the truth. And Mom will be Mom. She'll try to pretend it didn't happen eventually. But she can't unsee the checks. I reached into my purse. I pulled out a check I had written before I left Atlanta. It was for $10,000. Here, I said, for school. Or for whatever you need. Caleb's eyes widened. Ev, I can't take this. Take it, I said. It's from the trust. Grandma wanted you to be taken care of. There's going to be a lot of cleanup with the properties, but once I get the cash flow stable, I'll make sure your tuition is covered. He took the check. He hugged me. It was a tight, desperate hug. Thank you, he whispered, for coming back. I'll always come back for you, I said. I got in the car. I watched him walk back into the house. He looked stronger, too. The truth has a way of making people stand up straighter. I drove away. The drive back to Atlanta was quiet. I didn't turn on the radio. I just listened to the hum of the tires on the asphalt. I thought about my family. I knew things would never be the same. The dynamic was shattered. We wouldn't have those fake, happy Christmases anymore. We wouldn't have the polite dinners where I sat in the corner. It was sad. I felt a grief for the family I never had. But mostly, I felt light. The heavy stone in my stomach was gone. I wasn't waiting for their approval anymore. I wasn't waiting for them to say, good job. I had approved myself. I reached my apartment in the middle of the night. It was dark and cool inside. I took the binders out of my bag. I put them on the shelf. I took the original red folder, the one Grandma gave me, and placed it on the very top shelf, above everything else. I remembered what she said. Paper outlives promises. She was right. Promises are just words. They can be broken. They can be forgotten. They can be twisted. But paper holds the line. Paper remembers. I went to the window and looked out at the city lights of Atlanta. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was complete. I had boundaries now. They weren't walls to
Keep people out.
They were lines drawn in ink to show where I began and where the lies ended. I poured myself a glass of water. I drank it standing up. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from my father. We need to talk next week. About the transition. No apology. No, I love you. Just business. That was okay. I could handle business. I texted back 2 words. I'm ready. And I was. He claimed everything like it was his birthright. But my grandmother and I had already written the ending. If you've ever been erased, stay until the end, because silence isn't weakness. It's documentation.